from above, I'm just up there like, and it's weird, but it seems so normal. I think because it is in the spirit realm. I just look down, I'm like, oh, those angels are down there to help that guy. That's nice. Just watching. That's when Shannon, the red-haired lady, came in. She gets down, she gets on her knees, and she's feeling for a pulse. The angels are still there. And there was a guy on the passenger side front corner of the truck in what I would call farmer bibs, just those gray bibs with the blue stripes. Big guy had his arms crossed. There was a little guy next to him. And as she's feeling for a pulse, I listened as he said to her, Shannon, he said, it's too late. He's already passed.
Today's NDE story is sponsored by AG1, a daily foundational nutrition supplement designed to support whole body health. AG1 delivers high-quality vitamins and nutrients from whole foods, prebiotics, and probiotics that enhance gut health and overall nutrient absorption. It's formulated with over 75 vitamins, minerals, and whole food-sourced ingredients that work together to fill nutritional gaps and support your body's daily needs. This all-in-one supplement supports mental clarity, focus, and sustained energy without the caffeine crash. The blend of adaptogens and B vitamins in AG1 helps maintain concentration and cognitive performance throughout the day. No more midday slumps or reaching for that extra cup of coffee. AG1 understands your busy lifestyle, and that's why it comes with convenient travel packs. Perfect for maintaining your health routine on the go, these travel packs ensure you never miss a day of your healthy habit. Simply mix one pack with water and you're good to go, whether traveling for work or leisure. One of the standout features of AG1 is its taste. The natural essences of pineapple and vanilla beans make drinking enjoyable every morning. Plus, it's NSF certified for sport, ensuring it's safe and free from over 950 contaminants and impurities. AG1 is not just a supplement, it's a health partner. It supports immune defense with essential vitamins, minerals, and whole food-sourced antioxidants like zinc and citrus bioflavonoids. Designed to bolster your immune system, enhance gut health, and boost your overall vitality, AG1 is a comprehensive solution for your health needs. To get started with AG1, go to drinkag1.com/theothersidenDE to get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3 plus K2 and 5 AG1 travel packs with your first purchase. Thanks to AG1 for sponsoring today's video.
So my near-death experience actually happened in November 16th, 2006, so it's been quite a while already. I own a business. My wife and I own the business where I traveled around the state as a mechanic. She did the paperwork, but I did on-site diesel repair. So there are all kinds of places that diesel engines need to be worked on that somebody has to go on-site to do it, and they can't be brought to a garage, and that's exactly what I specialized in doing. I had all these tools on a truck, and I would just go from place to place. It could be in a gravel pit or in a farmer's field or wherever. But the day of the accident, I was actually working on a Peterbilt logging truck in a logging business about an hour south of our home in an area, very rural area, as you'd imagine that a logging business would be located. I was called onto the job because this big Peterbilt logging truck had a coolant leak. It was leaking antifreeze. So I came in, I worked with their mechanic, the gentleman who worked at that facility as the mechanic there. Just didn't have the training or tooling to do the engine repair like I did. So that's why they brought me in as like an engine repair specialist. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we worked on it. We got to the end of the day on Thursday, and in order to test the repair, I had the other mechanic, Leonard, start it up. So the engine's running maybe, I don't know, 15 or 20 minutes. Hard to get an engine up to temperature inside a garage without it being under a load or a pull. So again, it's running in there, you know, at a high idle just to try and build temperature. I'm wiping my tools off, putting them back in my truck. And the other mechanic walked up, tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, before you go, could you look at one more thing? He had a dirty spot in the engine that he knew was seeping oil, and he wanted me to diagnose that. And I didn't answer him. I remember looking up at the clock and it said 6:10 p.m. I had left my house that morning at 6 a.m., arrived on job site at like 7 a.m. It was going to be over a 13-hour day if I walked out the door right then. So I didn't really want to work on anything else. He's reading my mind as I'm looking at the clock, and he said, hey, you don't have to fix it. You don't have to take a lot of time. He said, I just want you to diagnose it, figure out what the problem is. So if you were to stand in front of one of these big Class 8, the biggest semi trucks there are, and there's a big front bumper, if you were to get on your knees and look from the front of the truck towards the back of the truck, underneath that front bumper, that space, what you'd see is lowest thing to the ground on these big trucks is the front axle. And the reason why is the two front wheels, when you turn your steering wheel, the wheels are connected to that axle, and it drops down on each side and just goes from the left side to the right side, you know, of the left side of the truck to the right side of the truck. And this big steel I-beam is maybe, you know, 4, 5, 6 inches deep front to back and, you know, 6, 7, 8 inches tall, but it carries 5 to 6 tons of weight. So 10 to 12,000 pounds of weight just on the two front tires. It's not the weight of the truck, but that is the weight of just what's on those two front tires. So Leonard had jacked up that axle. He placed a bottle jack, just a round bottle jack, underneath the passenger side of the axle. He had jacked it up. He'd removed the passenger side front wheel. So now this truck has been sitting on the jack with the wheel removed for 3 days. It's been running for 15 or 20 minutes. And now he wants me to go underneath it and look and see if I can diagnose where the oil leak is from. So there's a tool that mechanics use. It's called a creeper. And his creeper was a real piece of junk. It was plastic. It was hollow core. There was no real small wheels at each end. And the problem with those kind of creepers is that every garage floor has cracks. Every garage floor has pieces of gravel and stuff. And so it's really hard to roll across those little obstacles with the little bitty small wheels. I remember looking down at the creeper and thinking I didn't want to get on. It was just going to make me mad. I turned and looked in the back of my service truck where I've got my snap-on creeper with six great big wheels and a steel framework. And I remember thinking I just wanted to go home. I didn't want to take the time to unstrap my creeper. So I got on his creeper, and thank goodness I did, because literally it was a difference between getting crushed in half or getting cut in half. So I get on his hollow core plastic creeper. I lay on it on my back. And if you can imagine, I went underneath the front bumper feet first, just barely able, just enough space to go underneath the front bumper. So I go all the way underneath the truck. The bumper is now back here behind my head. And the axle, again, the axle's like, a dollar bill wide front to back. Where it happened to end up is right across the soft part of my belly. So from basically the bottom of my ribs to my pelvic, that whole area where your belly button is, the axle was going from one side to the other, being held up on a jack. On my left side over here, passenger side of the truck, and on this side, the right side of the truck, there's a wheel. The wheel is still attached. So I'm laying underneath it. I'm looking at the bottom of the engine in the area that had the dirty spot. And I came to a conclusion of what I thought it was. I didn't need the truck running anymore. So I yelled out to the mechanic, Leonard, go ahead, shut off the engine off. As I said, the driver's side wheel is still attached to the axle. It's still on the ground. The passenger side being held up by the jack. Now, typically when you would jack something up, you would use jack stands or blocking to take the weight off the jack and put it on the safety equipment. Jacks are lifting devices. They're not designed to hold weight. Unfortunately, when he had jacked it up, he had not putting jack stands or blocking, had not taken the weight off it. So I looked underneath the truck before crawling underneath, and I saw that there was no safety equipment. I made the choice to go underneath there anyway. Again, it had been on there for 3 days. It had been running 15, 20 minutes. So when I said shut the engine off, he got inside the truck to shut it off. And when he did, big Peterbilts most of them have air suspension. They're known for that. So the truck shifted and rocked as he got in the truck, which would be normal based on that kind of suspension. But when he did, there was movement over here in my peripheral vision, my left eye. And I turned my head just in time to see the jack that is supposed to be holding up the axle had slipped out when he got in the truck, and everything has shifted. And as I'm looking over there, literally the axle is here, and this is the jack that's supposed to be holding up the jack. It slipped all the way out, and it was teetering on the edge. And before I could do anything, the jack shot out, and this 5 to 6 tons of weight, so 10 to 12,000 pounds of steel, fell through the middle of my body. And on the left side over here is where it hit the cement. Again, being held up on the right side or driver's side with the wheel. If you can imagine, 10 to 12,000 pounds of steel dropping, let's say a foot, or less or whatever it was, and hitting the cement, it just was this crazy explosion noise. But the weird thing was, mixed in with this loud explosion noise of the several tons of steel dropping to hit the cement, was inside of me, I heard, mixed with it like swishing, swirling liquid noise, which was really bizarre. Come to find out, the liquid was me. So when the truck fell through me, blood shot up my throat, out of my mouth, and onto the cement. And I remember looking down and seeing the blood on the cement. And at that point, I just said, Lord, help me. I remember saying it twice. I'm not sure why I said it the second time, in case I was worried that he wasn't going to listen the first time or what. But I said, Lord, when I say Lord, I'm referring to Jesus. And I just said, Lord, help me twice. And then I looked down and I could see on this side where the axle is on the ground over here, touching on the passenger side, coming up at an angle because the driver's side wheel is still attached. After it had fallen through me, there was about 1 inch of space approximately between, on the left side of my body, between the bottom of the axle and the cement. So I know how wide, again, I know how wide the axle is front to back, basically taking up all the space between the bottom of my ribs and my pelvic, front to back wise, and all the way side to side. So on the right side of me, there was maybe 2 inches of space. So maybe I was approximately 2 inches thick. According to the doctor reports, the radiology reports, I don't have a belly button anymore, but where I used to, straight from that to the back of my back, is my L4, L5 vertebrae. And according to the radiology reports, the doctor reports, I had 2 broken vertebrae. They were spider cracked and D-shaped. L4, L5 were the 2 that were broken. So I was literally thinner than my spine in the middle of my body, thinner than that on the left side and thicker than that on the right side. So everything in here completely crushed. I can't even tell you how bad it hurt. The pain was off the charts. Plastic hollow core creeper collapsed to nothing. It just flattened out to nothing because there's no wheels there. There's nothing. It's just, again, a plastic hollow thing. So it flattened out. If I would have been on my snap-on creeper, right there in the middle is an extra cross member that's 1 inch thick, an extra set of wheels. And instead of the creeper I was on just collapsed, instead of doing that, if I would have been on that my creeper with the steel cross member right there. That's the thickness of the cross member is the thickness of how thick I was. So instead of being just crushed to, however thin I was, I would have been sheared into two pieces because of the steel framework. So again, that in itself was a huge thing. So the truck is on top of me. The engine's still running. He didn't shut the engine off because the jack slipped out before he could shut the engine off. So he got down out of the truck, and the bumper, like I said, is behind my head. There's a gap underneath on the driver's side between the bottom of the bumper and the cement in the garage floor. And he's looking at me underneath the truck, and we're looking at each other. From my point of view, from his point of view, all we could see was my ribs up because the axle is so tall, or this way, top to bottom, and it had fallen through me. So literally I could just see from my ribs up, and I'm looking at him and he's looking at me, and he went into shock seeing my body crushed like that. He froze. And so I was saying, call 911. I kept saying it over and over. He wasn't moving. It seemed like forever. I don't know how long it was. And finally he shook out of it, and he makes the call, says, truck full of guys crushed in half, hangs up. And as soon as he did, I started begging him to shut the engine off because big diesel engines inherently vibrate because of the way they're designed. The engine is right literally above me. The axle is falling through me, and all that weight across the middle of this big diesel engine vibrating, it felt like it was sawing me in half. And I just kept begging him, please shut it off, because it was like exaggerating the pain with this thing vibrating on my broken vertebrae and like sawing on me. So I'm just begging him, please shut it off, shut it off. So he got up on the truck, he shut it off. He went and got the jack that had shot out, and he's trying to figure out how he's going to get the truck off of my body. Unfortunately, when the axle fell, there was no way to get the jack back underneath the axle to jack it up. So what he did was, as I'm laying underneath the truck, looking to my left side or the passenger side of the vehicle, he slipped the jack underneath the big suspension component leaf spring. So if you were looking on the side, purely a side view of the truck where the missing wheel was, there's a big curved leaf spring that attaches to the frame, and in the bottom of that leaf spring is where the axle's attached to. So he slid the jack underneath the arc of the big curved leaf spring. He slid the jack underneath it on my left hand side from the front. And you don't want to jack something up with a arc or curve because the jack's just going to slip. So I was begging him not to jack it up there. I was afraid it was going to slip and I was going to fall me again. It already hurt bad enough. So I'm looking at him and I'm saying, please, not there. And he just kept, there's a little handle. It's a manual jack. So he's pumping the handle. And I'm watching as the jack is just slipping as it's going up the leaf spring. I kept saying, please don't jack it up there. And he said, it's the only place I've got. There is no other place. So he kept jacking. Finally, the edge of the jack caught on a little bracket, a little U-shaped clamp for the ends of the short leaves. So it caught on that. Now the truck starts going up as every pump it's jacking. It's going up, up, up. So finally he got the truck off of my body. When he did, I got to look down and see my body top to bottom for the first time. And it was bizarre because I had a work uniform with the name of my company, Bruce's Mobile Service, a couple patches on my work mechanic uniform, whatever. But at the very edge, bottom of the patch is basically where my ribs started. My work uniform went straight back, followed along my spine, and came back up at my pelvic. So in the middle of my body was this ridiculous flat spot, and there was nothing to compare it to. I had nothing at all in my brain. It was so surreal, so bizarre. There was nothing to compare it to. And again, it hurt so bad. The other thing was, I didn't know it at the time. I had the horrible pain the whole time, but as soon as he jacked the truck off my body, I felt incredibly weak. And the reason why, we found out much later, because I had 5 places that major arteries were completely severed. And so as soon as he took the truck off and the weight got taken off, all those arteries that were severed began to bleed out. So I was bleeding out internally on the inside of my body in 5 places. Doctors told us later that if you have one major artery severed and you can't put a tourniquet on or stop the bleeding, you'll bleed out in like 8 to 10 minutes. I had 5 places in the middle, the major arteries that are in the middle of your belly, that area, they were severed, and spleen, pancreas, a bunch of other stuff as well, besides the clipped a couple ribs, the vertebrae. Anyway, all the damage in here, everything you can imagine is in the middle of your belly, flat, crushed. So the weakness is taking over because I'm bleeding out internally. I'm panicking because I'm afraid the jack is going to slip and it's going to fall on me again. It already hurt bad enough. So I started to beg him to get me off from the truck. Because of the flat spot that was so visible, he wouldn't touch me. Most people have been told not to move somebody with a back injury or they could become paralyzed. So I kept saying, please pull me out from the truck. I'm still in the creeper. The creeper's broken in the middle, flattened out, and he wouldn't touch me. And so finally I panicked. I reached back. I grabbed the bottom of the bumper just back here behind my head. It took everything I had, and I was able to drag myself out far enough that now, look, my shoulders and arms were out from underneath the front, sticking out from the bottom of the truck, sticking out from underneath that front bumper. The rest of my body is underneath the truck. I looked, and the axle is now over my legs, lower part of my legs. So I was thinking, well, if the jack slips now, it's going to fall on my legs and break both my legs. So then I put my hands on the bumper now that I've, dragged myself out this far and I've got my hands on the front of the bumper, and I'm just going to try and do one more push to get myself out the rest of the way. And it was right then when I realized, as I'm trying to do that push to get myself out, that I couldn't breathe. Both of my lungs were collapsed because the accident had pushed my diaphragm up and collapsed both of my lungs. And because of the pain, because of the craziness, everything going on, I hadn't even realized it, that I couldn't breathe right until that moment. And my heart is just racing my body's in shock. One of the things about being in shock is your pulse is highly elevated. So my heart is just pounding in my ear. And that's what it was. My heartbeat's just pounding away. And I'm trying to do that push. I couldn't do it. I couldn't take enough breath of air. I couldn't breathe. I'm trying to suck in the air. My body's shaking, and my heart was just going bop, 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 bop. And what I heard, to me, I literally heard my heart stop. So my heart is racing, bop, 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 and it sounded like shutting off an engine, just dut, 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 dut. And the last beat of my heart, my spirit left my body. It went up in the roof of the garage, and now I'm looking down, I don't know, 14, 15, 16 feet, looking down in the accident scene. The first thing I'm going to say is it was perfect peace. I've never felt so good my entire life. It was perfect peace. So I'm up in the garage, perfect peace. I'm not feeling pain, not feeling fear, nothing, just up in perfect peace. Looking down, I was so disconnected from the accident scene that I didn't realize that the guy underneath the truck was me. The man that I've been working with, Leonard, was on his knees, and he's running his fingers through my hair, and he was crying. I could hear every word he was saying. He was saying things like, I should be the one that's dead, not you. I'm sorry. I'm such an old fool. Stuff like that. I didn't care. Up in the ceiling, again, it didn't matter to me at all. I was just watching it, kind of just observing, I guess is the only word I can use, just observing up there in perfect peace, even though there's chaos going on there. So the people from the volunteer fire department are showing up onesie twosies as they got there. The first couple guys got there really quick. I found out later, they're driving on their way home from work in the middle of this remote area because they live in that area. And so they came in, the first two guys, the other one stretched out. I watched from above as they were coming in. And I think one detail that for me and for that volunteer fire department absolutely proves that the real Bruce, my spirit, was in the ceiling, was the last two people that got there was a red-haired lady named Shannon and an older guy with gray hair, and they had come in the back door of the shop. So if you can picture this big rectangular truck garage, implement garage, where I was working on that semi-truck, the semi-truck was all the way to the back, the logging truck. My service truck was backed up to it, and I had come in and out, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday on the main driveway, little blacktop driveway that just goes right out to the road. I'd come in and out through that driveway all 3 days. And the other times that I had been at that facility and worked there in years previous. And everybody, all the volunteer fire department people came into that main door, the main door that I did, except the last two people that came. So I'm just going to fast forward and say, I spent the next year in the hospital. And when I got out of the hospital, I wanted to go and say thank you to the volunteer fire department people. So I called the chief, said, can I come in on your monthly meeting? So he told me the night to come in. So I went in there. This is a little over a year after the accident. I went in there, and at a group of 30 people, I was able to point out 8 of the 10 people who had come to the scene of the accident. Now, other than the first two people that got there, my heart was still going. But after that, the rest of the people that came, I had no more heartbeat, no more pulse. So I was able to tell them, point out people that had come. But here's the really cool thing. I was able to point out Shannon, it was easy because it's the only woman, and the red-haired lady and the only gray-haired guy. Those two had come in the back door. And in front of the whole group, I asked them, why did you come in the back door? Like everybody else came in the front door like I did. Like, why did you come in the back door? And because it was over a year later, they had to sit and think about it. And they're like, oh yeah, they'd missed the driveway. They got their page, whatever. They missed the driveway, saw the flashing lights. And there was a secondary driveway that went up to the back of the shop, a gravel driveway. And they said they just got the secondary driveway, came up the back of the shop, came in that back door. And, and then she got down. So as I'm watching from above, I'm looking down, I'm listening to Leonard, the things he's saying. And again, he's running his fingers through my hair and crying and all that stuff. And on each side of Leonard was an angel. If Leonard is like 6'1", 6'2", based on him, I want to say they're 8 feet tall, easily a couple feet taller than him, again, on their knees. They never talked. They never said a word. The one from the driver's side reached over and put his hand in the middle of the flat spot, and the one from the passenger side did the same thing. They were obviously men as I'm looking from the backside. So I researched this. I read through the Bible end to end to try and, find out all the places angels are mentioned. I found that they're mentioned in the Bible 290 sometimes. Sometimes they look like normal people. Sometimes they didn't. Sometimes they have wings. Sometimes they didn't. The two angels that I saw did not have wings. Picture 2 8 feet tall men. They did have bright white shining robes. And I did find in the Bible that that's mentioned a couple times, the bright shining robes. So they were obviously men, even though I didn't get to see their faces. I just got to see their backs. They didn't talk. They never communicated to me at all, never said a word, but they did have really long hair. There was a belt on their robe, and that's right where their hair ended. So, I mean, it was, their hair went way down their back, very, very muscular. And they just reached over, touching. And from above, I'm just up there like, and it's weird, but it seems so normal. I think because it is in the spirit realm. I just look down, I'm like, oh, those angels are down there to help that guy. That's nice. Just watching. That's when Shannon, the red-haired lady, came in. She gets down, she gets on her knees, and she's feeling for a pulse. The angels are still there. And there was a guy on the passenger side front corner of the truck in what I would call farmer bibs, just those gray bibs with the blue stripes. Big guy had his arms crossed. There was a little guy next to him. And as she's feeling for a pulse, I listened as he said to her, Shannon, he said, it's too late. He's already passed. And she was frantically feeling for a pulse. She couldn't figure out why nobody wasn't doing anything. Well, and the reason why they didn't do CPR is I had a massive chest injury. So they just stood back. And so several minutes have gone by. She's feeling for a pulse, and he keeps saying it's too late. He's already passed. And the next thing, as I'm watching from above, I see this lady start doing, she started slapping that guy in the face down there. And she's saying, come back. So then she said to Leonard, the other mechanic that I was working with, she said, what's his name? The guy says Bruce Zan Natta. And so the lady gets louder and louder, and she's going, Bruce Zan Natta, come back, come back. So now figure there's 10 people from the volunteer fire department, some first responders, you know, they're all volunteers, and they're all quietly standing around respectfully talking until she did that. And when she started slapping me in the face and saying, come back, they all quit talking, and they were giving her the, what are you doing, crazy lady look. They were just all staring at her, and she kept getting louder and louder. And all of a sudden my spirit came out from where I was up in the ceiling. And the only way I can describe it is every time she said Bruce Zan Natta, it sounded somewhat familiar. Is like the only way I can describe it. My spirit was creeping down. And when it seemed like it was about half the way, all of a sudden it went in really fast. My spirit came into my body. And when it did, my heart started. She said, my eyes were completely closed. When my heart started, my eyes popped open. And when my eyes popped open, I went from feeling the absolute best I've ever felt in perfect peace to now being in a body that's crushed in half, feeling the absolute worst I've ever felt. The pain was horrendous. And immediately I realized I'd been watched from above, and I realized I was the guy under the truck. And then it all came back to me. It's like it just real fast came back in my head. Oh yeah, the truck fell on me. And it was like, oh, 4-letter word that means fertilizer. Oh, blank. I'm the guy under the truck. It just hurt so bad. And I just remember saying, no, I don't want it. It hurts too bad. I don't want it. And when I made that choice, that decision, my heart stopped. My spirit left my body. I went right back up to the roof of the garage. This time, the only thing that was different, I could look down. I could see the 2 angels still leaned over my body. I could see Shannon, the lady, over. I could see all the people. I mean, that was all the same. But the thing that was different was going out of the garage at like a 45-degree angle to my right out of the roof, was a tunnel or a tube with a bright light on the end. There's 8 to 10 million people right now, they say, based on the averages, have had out-of-body or near-death experiences. And there's a lot of people who've seen a tunnel with light on the end of it. That's what I saw. There was a tunnel with light on the end of it. I knew that I knew that I knew in my spirit that heaven was on the end of the tunnel, and I was happy to go. And I got in the tunnel, and I was rocketing away towards the bright light at a fast, super fast pace, like a roller coaster. I mean, like really fast. I could feel it, like G-force. And so I'm going away, rocketing, happy to go to heaven. But behind me somewhere, I could hear that lady, and she was doing the Bruce Zan Natta, come back, come back. I got stopped in the tunnel. I got sucked backwards out of the tunnel. Next thing I'm back in the roof again. I'm looking down. I could see all the people, and my spirit came back into my body the second time. And when it did this time, I looked on my left and I looked on my right with my earth eyes once my spirit came back in. My heart started again, and I looked for the angels, and I couldn't see them. There wasn't anything. I'm in the natural. I couldn't see anything, and it really scared me because how bad it hurt, and just the fact that I'm terrified because of the horrible pain. I got the flat spot, and I was out of body, so it's just very, very scary. And it was in that chaos, is the best word, I guess, is in the middle of all that chaos and pain, that I heard a still small whisper inside of me, as I guess the only way I can describe it. And basically, the Bible says the Holy Spirit lives inside of Christians. God is Holy Spirit. He spoke, and he just whispered to me and just simply said, if you want to live, you're gonna have to fight, and it's gonna be a hard fight. You know, that's one of the things I love about God, is that he doesn't lie, he doesn't BS, he doesn't exaggerate. He just tells it straight up like it is. And I didn't want to fight. It hurt too bad. And I said, screw it. I don't want to fight. And the second time, my heart stops, my spirit leaves my body. I went up in the roof of the garage. Now the third time up in the roof of the garage, and the tunnel opens up for the second time. I got in the tunnel. I started rocking away towards heaven, happy to go to heaven and be in that perfect peace. And this lady is slapping me in the face. I get stopped, sucked backwards out of the tunnel. I look down, I could see the angels that I just couldn't see before. In my spirit, I could see them there. They're still touching me in the middle, and my spirit comes back inside my body. So the lady, Shannon, her face is like right here, because I'm still laying on the creeper. And so she's right here. And when I came back in that time, she said to me, Mister, you're on the verge of life and death. What do you have to fight for? And immediately I sensed, I fully believe that the Holy Spirit that was telling me if I wanted to live, I was going to have to fight. It was going to be a hard fight. God spoke through her and said, reminded me about my kids, my wife. I had 4 small children. Again, she says, what do you have to fight for? Do you have a wife? Do you have kids? I thought of Lori, I thought of the kids. So she said, stay here, don't leave, stay here and fight. Because we're in the middle of nowhere, unfortunately, they had made a mistake and they had called MedFlight, which they should have, but what they didn't do was they didn't call an ambulance right away. So the helicopter came from Madison, where I live, my state, the biggest trauma center we have. So helicopter came, but turned around and got sent back because there was no ambulance to get me, the body, out to where the helicopter was at the highway. So it got sent back. So then when the ambulance came, they picked me up from the scene of the accident and took me to a little small hospital, 20 minutes, half an hour away, where the helicopter came back to, immediately picked me up, and then transported me to our state's biggest trauma center. The helicopter lands on the roof. There's a big, what looks like a big garage door, semi-garage door. It's kind of weird. Opens up. They wheel the gurney or whatever in there with me on it. And right there's this CAT scan machine. And they kept asking me the same questions. What's your name? What's your birthday? I knew what it was, but I couldn't speak it, rather. I didn't have the strength to speak it out. But in my head, I knew what it was. And so they kept asking the same questions. I didn't have the strength. And the two doctors, the two night shift guys that were working that night, got into an argument. And it was scaring me that the two doctors were arguing about what they were looking at on the screen. So they pulled me out. They turned my body like 90 degrees and used these foam things to put me back in there, or whatever, how they positioned me to put me back in. And as they put me back in the second time, everything started to go dark, just like you turn down the rheostat on lights, those kind of lights where you can, adjust the brightness. And everything was going dark, but my eyes were open and I knew I was dying. And right when everything was going dark, the small amount of blood pressure that I did have what they wrote in, it bottomed out. So I lost all blood pressure at this point. And when I lose all blood pressure, all the bells and whistles are going off. And I blurt out to them, if you don't do something right now, I'm going to die. Which there was, I don't know, at least 10 people in the room. And they all stopped for like that one split second and had this crazy look like of shock as they looked at me, because they've been asking my name and my birthday and I haven't said a word for, the last 10 minutes or whatever it's been, however long it was in there. So I say, if you don't do something right now, I'm going to die. I don't have any blood pressure. They pulled me out of the machine, wheeled me around a corner. And I remember a gas mask coming to my face. And the thought in my head was, thinking like a mechanic, finally, they're going to do something. They're going to fix it. So they kept me in an induced coma for several weeks. They operated on me on and off that first, week, did multiple operations the very first week. We've added up the days. I've actually been in the hospital more than a year in my life. The last operation was on December of 2007. The accident happened November of 2006, so a year and a month after the accident. But I'd get out during that year. I'd get out for a couple of weeks, go back in for a couple of months, get out for a couple of days, go back in. It was in and out, in and out, in and out. But like I said, I actually ended up spending more than a year in the hospital. The truck fell in the middle of my body. Your intestines are right there. Doctors have told me that an average adult has 18 to 22, 24 feet of small intestine, because it's all like a ball of worms. It's all balled up together right there, right under your belly button. When the truck fell on me, it destroyed my intestines. And the doctors were only able to save two pieces that they sewed together. It's all in the doctor reports, roughly around 100 centimeters, which I don't know why the doctor's reports are in centimeters, but it is. And they say that's what they told us at the time, less than 100 centimeters, you can't live. And that's when, like March, I think, of that year, one of the two pieces that they tried to save of the intestine died. And then I'm underneath the amount that supposedly you could live from. So I always make the joke that, I was dating an atheist bartender and we ended up getting married, and she turned into church lady from Saturday Night Live on me. And, so we'd been attending church and stuff, and she was actually working at church. And after the accident, she sent my prayer request out to people all over the country that she could find on the internet or whatever, for churches that I pray for people. And so this guy tells us that God woke him up 2 mornings in a row at 5 a.m. in New York. And he said God told him, fly to Wisconsin, pray for this guy, and he'll do a miracle. The first day, pretty much blew it off. Told his wife about it, told another person about it, but didn't do anything. The next day he did. Same thing, at 5 a.m. God said, buy a plane ticket, fly to Wisconsin, pray for that guy in the hospital. I'm going to do a miracle. So he literally paid, clear back then in the beginning of 2007, he paid 900 and some bucks out of his pocket to get an instant ticket to fly. The guy prayed for me in the hospital. And when he did, a creative miracle happened that I physically felt. He started praying for me. He put his palm on my forehead and felt like electricity come out of his palm into my forehead. And he just prayed in the name of Jesus. And he said, small intestines, I command you to come back. Supernaturally in length. And I could feel something swishing around in my belly. And we found out later that they say now approximately half my intestines. They can't measure exactly because intestine, again, is like a ball of worms, but they can do a really good estimation. And they say I have approximately half. So 9 to 11 feet based off the average. It's the difference between life and death. Otherwise, I was literally starving to death in the hospital. So in January 1st of 2008, we started a ministry called Sweet Bread Ministries, even though I was still in the hospital. And I just travel around and I share this testimony about me calling out from underneath the truck, saying, God help me. Him sending the lady to, I didn't tell you this, I left this important part out, but that lady, Shannon, she had been believing in Jesus for 2 months. So she wouldn't have called herself like some big hardcore Christian. And in the 2 months leading up to my accident, she told us that somebody told her to read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the Gospels of the Bible, and that's what she was doing. So when she showed up that day of the accident, that 2-month-old baby Christian prayed me back to life 3 times. And I say all the time, thank God she didn't go to church, because she might have went to some church that doesn't believe in miracles or whatever, some corny church or whatever. So the lady prayed me back to life. This guy showed up, he prayed, the miracle happened for my intestines. And so ever since 2008, I had to do a bunch of rehab, had to learn how to walk again, actually had to learn how to read again and write again because of the trauma from lack of oxygen, I guess. But it was a very long, ugly process of getting healed. But we started this ministry. We travel around and just share this testimony, just like I did with you guys, and just tell people, look, I came from a really rough childhood. My parents would have said they believed in God, but we weren't church people. We didn't go to church, maybe Christmas, maybe Easter, if ever. Drug and alcohol family. I grew up with a lot of physical abuse, verbal abuse. I was repeatedly sexually abused as a child, and literally was mad my whole, childhood about my life, and, mad that if there was a God, why would he allow bad things like that to happen to kids? But again, I just share this testimony because I want people to know God is real. He is listening to us. He does hear our prayers. He obviously doesn't always answer the way we want, but I just want to share with people that there is definitely a spiritual reality out there, just like Shannon and her husband realized there's spirits are real, and it's because God is real. And seeing the angels and everything changed my life so much that I walked away from a very successful business and went into ministry just to tell people this. So it's not like it was a life change for me. Otherwise I'd still be doing what I was doing and making lots of money doing it, as opposed to ministry where there's not a lot of money, because it's not about the money. So again, it was very life changing for me, and I just want to share that. And I'm going to continue to share this story, this testimony, for the rest of my life.